Imagine a world where Russia and the United States were best friends instead of mortal enemies. It sounds like something from a bad sci-fi book, but it really could have happened if these unbelievable reasons hadn't stopped Russia from joining NATO. In this video, we're uncovering the surprising reasons and what-ifs behind Russia's decision to stay far away from NATO. Stick with this until the end, and you'll find out about a shocking secret US-Russia presidential meeting and bold 90s American proposal that nearly reversed decades of Cold War hostility. Had it gone ahead, this decision would have been explosive. It could have brought Russia into the NATO fold and would have changed world history forever. But to understand this complex geopolitical puzzle, let's start back at the beginning with NATO's origins. NATO, which is short for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, first began in 1949. It was created in the shadows of a world recovering from the devastation of World War II. NATO's formation marked a significant moment in the early stages of the Cold War, drawing the tense battle lines between Russia and the United States. During its creation, NATO's primary purpose was collective defense. One of its most controversial policies is Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. Essentially, Article 5 states that if any non-NATO countries attacked one of its members, they would see this as an attack on all of them. This principle was a direct response to what America saw as Soviet aggression in Europe. Its main goals were to preserve peace in post-war Europe, stop Soviet expansion, and defund democratic nations against the spread of communism. So Russia, as the core of the Soviet Union, was positioned as NATO's primary enemy. The ideological, political, and military divide between NATO and the Soviet Union was deep and shaped the global order for decades. This wasn't just a simple opposition of military alliances. It was a clash of ideologies, with democracy and communism as the competing narratives. But it wasn't always this way. In fact, during the 1950s, the Russian government actually proposed joining NATO. This proposal came from Vyacheslav Molotov, who was the foreign minister for the USSR. He wrote to Georgy Malenkov, who was the head of the state for the USSR, and Nikita Khrushchev, the general secretary of the Communist Party. However, this wasn't just a peaceful proposal. Molotov saw Russia's membership in NATO as fundamentally challenging American power in Europe. He claimed it would make things difficult for the organizers of the North Atlantic Bloc and would emphasize its supposedly defensive character so that it would not be directed against the USSR. Molotov believed joining NATO would negate plans for West Germany, which was under US control, to be rearmed. He also argued it would mean that many American soldiers would be forced to leave Europe. But to nobody's surprise, America was completely against this. They denied the proposal, claiming the USSR's membership of the organization would be incompatible with its democratic and defensive aims. In the post-Cold War era, the dynamics between NATO and Russia underwent a significant change. The Russian government started to completely reassess its geopolitical alliances and strategies. With the complete collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia showed an initial willingness to align more closely with Western institutions. And yes, that includes NATO. Under President Boris Yeltsin, Russia began to consider joining NATO. Publicly, Yeltsin criticized NATO, but behind closed doors, he was not against NATO expansion in Europe and actually thought about joining the alliance. His interest was part of a broader goal to become part of Western political and economic systems. In essence, he was looking for stability and international partnership. Then, in the mid-1990s, Russia's relationship with NATO took a notable turn. In 1994, the country joined the NATO Partnership for Peace program. This was an innovative program that was designed to build cooperative military relations between NATO and non-NATO countries. They aimed to foster transparency and lay the groundwork for potential future alliances. For many, they saw Russia's involvement as a significant step towards erasing Cold War tensions. Even the then US President Clinton claimed it was a track that will lead to NATO membership. Seems pretty optimistic, right? Unfortunately, this journey from partnership to full membership was filled with challenges. The West, particularly the United States, was a little open to the idea. However, they were also cautious about allowing Russia to join. They were worried about the complexities of integrating a former enemy with a completely different political and military structure. Other NATO members were also concerned about Russia's commitment to democratic principles. On the Russian side, there was domestic opposition. Many people saw the nation's entry to NATO as a betrayal, since it was the alliance of former enemies. The political climate was also evolving. From 1990 to 1999, NATO organized a bombing campaign against Yugoslavia, which was a Russian ally. This caused a major setback in NATO-Russia relations. It reinforced criticism in Russia about Western intentions. The event was a turning point, leading to even more opposition within Russia to the idea of joining NATO. Another deciding factor was the expansion of NATO into Eastern Europe. The Warsaw Pact had been the USSR's answer and direct challenge to NATO. However, following the USSR's fall, several former Soviet states and Warsaw Pact members joined NATO. In the 90s, this included Poland, the Czech Republic, and Hungary, with many other countries to follow in the 2000s. This shocking development raised deep concerns in Russia about its loss of influence in nearby countries. Moscow saw the expansion as a breach of Western promises and a provocative invasion of Russia's traditional sphere of influence. This period ultimately set the stage for the complex and strained NATO-Russia relations in the following decades. The initial optimism of the Partnership for Peace program did not translate into NATO membership for Russia. Both sides struggled with the legacy of the Cold War and the harsh realities of a new international order. Despite this, the turn of the millennium suggested there were some changes on the horizon. In 2002, the NATO Russia Council was established. This was a significant step towards fostering cooperation between NATO and Russia after many years of public conflict. It was meant to be a forum for open dialogue and joint decision-making by addressing security challenges of both Russia and NATO interests. This council allowed both sides to discuss and sometimes collaborate. They could look at issues like crisis management, counterterrorism, and arms control. Unfortunately, it was too good to be true. The Council experienced intense highs and lows that mirrored NATO and Russia's broader relationship. While the early years did create some degree of cooperation, the underlying tension often resurfaced. NATO missile defense system and military activities in Eastern Europe were controversial at best. Russia's actions in Ukraine and annexation of Crimea seriously challenged the effectiveness of the Council. This even caused practical cooperative activities to be suspended, although the political dialogue continued. Despite the cooperative tone of the 90s and early 2000s, recent developments have significantly strained NATO-Russia relations. In particular, the conflict in Ukraine has been a central point of controversy. The start of the Russian-Ukraine war and the recent Russian invasion were met with backlash from NATO members. This led to a series of sanctions against the nation. It also reinforced NATO's view of Russia as a serious security threat. But that's not all. Other issues, like military exercises, cyber operations, and political confrontations, have contributed to the escalating tensions between NATO and Russia. It doesn't seem like there's any chance of Russia joining the alliance anytime soon. Unfortunately, this has wider and much more serious consequences than you might think. Russia's non-membership in NATO has massively influenced global politics. It has encouraged Russia's decision to follow independent, often opposing, geopolitical strategies. This dynamic has led to Russia strengthening ties with other non-Western powers, challenging NATO's influence, and often creating counterbalances in global affairs. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The situation has forced NATO to reassess its security strategies, particularly in Eastern Europe with the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. So it's clear there are numerous reasons why Russia has never joined NATO, although it's not for a lack of trying. Their decision is rooted in historical, strategic, and political complexities. From the Cold War opposition and the initial openness of the post-Soviet era to the eventual hostility following NATO's expansion and global policy differences, these factors have all affected this outcome. Even today, the questions over the NATO Russia Council's effectiveness and recent tensions, particularly over Ukraine, have further complicated this relationship. Whether it's part of NATO or not, one thing is clear: Russia has a huge effect on global politics.